Hello, hey, hi, welcome back to Graybeard Astrology channel. My name's Jim. Glad to see you. So, just want to say hello and if you can, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. You know how it goes on the YouTubes, right? So today we're going to be going over the theory and principles about sect in traditional astrology, and then be touching on some of the planetary significations and how they might express themselves under the principle of the sect concept. It's very important. It's a very important concept in traditional astrology. I find it fascinating too, and I hope you find it as interesting and educational, and hopefully I can bring it across to a little with a little entertainment. If that's what you're interested in right now and you want to go ahead and go check out that information, I'll put some timestamps in there, of course. So if you're still here, plans for the channel going forward, going to talk about the theme of Monday next, probably, unless I change my mind, right? And then after that, or intertwined, I'm not sure. I was toying with the idea of making a bunch of videos and then releasing them, but I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to do some chart, go over charts of some popular rock stars. I've been a musician since I was 15. I've been playing guitar and bass guitar and stuff, and I'm an old hair metal fan. I really wouldn't say heavy metal, but that's a hair to split. More hard rock, but a big variety of music I like. But yeah, so there's, being a super fan of certain bands and stuff. The funny thing is that in hindsight, here I'm going down the road of being a little personal, but if you're still here, I don't think you mind, right? But it's funny in hindsight. I think about when I was a teenager and stuff, and how I would study like certain bands. I couldn't get enough backstory of the soap opera of the band. And it wasn't all the bands. It was just like certain ones where I had to know like everything. And then when I got older, I was studying astrology or any particular subject, I would just have to know everything. It would just the desire for the information, So it's funny as how that I saw in hindsight my the studying of certain subjects really led into the skill of studying astrology. So, it's funny how that is, Yeah, so I'm going to, talk about a couple popular musicians, a couple popular bands and stuff. Yeah, so that should be fun. If you do have any feedback for the channel, I'd, of course, greatly appreciate it and stuff. The audio, which I think is really important on YouTube, I hope the audio quality is pretty good. And if you have any feedback or anything, feel free. We're trying to, everybody that has a channel is, trying to grow a community and stuff. And in this world of isolation that has come to be in the last 5 years or so, sometimes it's really hard to, gain a sense of community anymore, right? You know how that goes, everybody, right? Anyway, so, hit the subscribe button, give me some feedback if you're interested. I get it, But, okay, having said that, here's a funny backstory about the word sect. Years ago when I was studying astrology and stuff, I heard this word sect, and it triggered, I didn't need the definition. I kind of knew already. And here's the funny thing. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but so if you go back in the 80s, there was some real popular TV shows like Knight Rider and Dukes of Hazzard, right? And I watched every episode, But There was also another TV show. I don't think it lasted very long, maybe 2 seasons, maybe 3. But the TV show was called The Master. And the actor Lee Von Cleef was one of the main characters. And he's an old Hollywood star from a lot of Western movies, late 60s. He was in, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and real stoic man, Anyway, so in this TV show called The Master, he played a ninja master. And of course, he had a pupil student. And they ran around, fighting crime and doing all kinds of ninja stuff, which, there was other movies at the time, Chuck Norris movies, and of course Bruce Lee before that. Anyway, as a young kid, you had Dukes of Hazzard at 7 o'clock and The Master at 8 o'clock. Are you kidding? So it's just, it was awesome. In the TV show, when the master was teaching the student, he talked about his history and his education and being a ninja, and what the school he belonged to, so to speak, was the sect of his karate or, martial art education. So, it was explained, that the sect was a particular branch of martial arts in that show. So, all those years later, when sect became a subject in astrology, right away I understood what it was. So it's just a little memory road, down memory road story. I thought it was kind of fun. And if you ever get a chance, that TV show was awesome. Let's get on with the show and jump into the slides. So sect comes from the Greek word meaning heresis. I hope I pronounced that right. Heresis. Back in the day, this didn't mean a weird religious group. It meant a fraction or an alliance or simply picking a side. Like political parties or maybe even football conferences, maybe. In the ancient world, a huge part of how astrologers thought about charts was built on the idea of teams or oppositions. Who is working with you and who is working against you? Ancient astrology divides every single birth chart into 2 clear factions. There is a diurnal sect, the day team, and a nocturnal sect, the night team. This wasn't some side note in ancient astrology. It was the core organizing principle. Ptolemy gave us a lot of basic framework. Valence showed how these 2 fractions actually operate like rival teams inside the chart. And Dorotheus used sect to look past simple sign placements and get a much clearer picture of each planet's real potential and its real problems. The whole point of learning sect is to stop treating every planet the same, seeing which ones are truly on the native side and which ones are fighting them from inside. So we have the diurnal versus the nocturnal are the 2 realms. So how does the division actually work in practice? If you were born while the sun was still above the horizon, or above the ascendant-descendant line during the daylight hours, your chart belongs to the diurnal sect, or the day team. If you were born after the sun has set in the evening, during the hours of darkness, your chart belongs to the nocturnal team, or the night sect. This is not just if it was sunny or dark outside when you took your first breath. It's about which half of the sky, which half of reality was dominant at the moment you entered the world. That single fact sets the entire tone of how all the planets are going to behave in that nativity. So the team leaders are the sun and the moon. Right at the center of the whole system are the 2 great luminaries, the sun and the moon. They are the captains. They are the boss. They call the shots for their respective teams. The sun is the undisputed leader of the diurnal sect. Everything on the day team ultimately answers to him. The moon is the leader of the nocturnal sect. She is in charge of the night team. On the broadest level, the sun is bright. Direct light represents the mind, consciousness, reason, clarity, and the drive to bring things out into the open and illuminate them. The moon, which is softer, reflects the light, representing the body, the senses, the instinct, emotion, and the whole realm of feeling and sensation. These two lights set the fundamental tone of everything else happening in the chart. The two different teams. Each leader brings their own squad to the game. The diurnal team, the day sect, consists of the sun as the leader, and then Jupiter and Saturn and Mercury. When Mercury is rising before the sun as a morning star. Now, we'll talk more about deciphering Mercury's situation later in the video, but just note, we will call a Mercury morning star, meaning the star of Mercury is seen in the morning before the sun rises. The nocturnal team, the night sect, consists of the moon as the leader, plus Venus and Mars. And then Mercury, when Mercury rises after the sun as an evening star. Now, it's better to, maybe a little easier to think of it as Mercury when it is setting after the sun has set, and it would be considered an evening star. Here is the fixed part. Jupiter and Saturn are always on the day team, and Venus and Mars are always on the night team. Only Mercury changes relative to a particular nativity or a particular chart. He joins whichever team he happens to be physically aligned with in that particular chart. So, no matter what chart you are looking at, you've got these two competing teams operating inside of it. The logic behind these alliances. So why these particular lineups, you might ask? Okay, the ancient astrologers had real reasons. They saw that life itself arises from unions of hot and active male energy and moist and passive female energy. Or you could say assertive energy and receptive energy. And they apply that same principle to the planets. Saturn is fundamentally cold and dry by nature. The warmth and activity of the daytime softens his heavy, limiting quality. So he belongs to the day team. Jupiter has a nicely balanced, moderate, hot, and moist temperament that loves the vigor and expansiveness of the daytime. Mars is excessively hot and dry, almost too fiery for his own good. The coolness and moisture of the evening tempers that destructive fire, which is why he is nocturnal. Venus is moist, pleasure-seeking, and relational. She feels more natural under the cover of the night. Now, the moon is cold and moist. She clearly is the queen of the night. The ancients also looked at the speed or the orbit of the particular planets. The slower moving planets behave more similarly to the sun. Faster ones behave more like the changing moon. Eastern appearances rising before the sun generally strengthened the day planets, while Western appearances strengthened the night planets. All of this creates a coherent, logical system for why each planet belongs to their particular sect or group. The home field advantage versus out-of-sect. So this would be the sect of the chart or the contrary to sect. Now we get into the practical heart of the matter. When a planet is in-sect, meaning it's playing on the same team as the particular nativity or the chart, it has a home field advantage. It's more comfortable, it's more relaxed, it's more balanced, and it operates in its natural element. Because of that, it's much more likely to express its positive significations cleanly and effectively. When a planet is out of sect or on the opposing team, It is out of its element. It's tense, it's edgy, it's unbalanced, and it's fighting an uphill battle. That discomfort makes it far more likely to create friction, complications, or even self-sabotage. Remember the key point. Sect is about the quality of the planet's actions, not its particular raw power or visibility. A planet can be strong by other measures, but still act poorly if it is out of sect. The malefics, constructive loyalty versus destructive rogues. Let's talk about the two troublemakers now, Saturn and Mars. These two planets are difficult by nature. They never suddenly become sweet and easy, but sect changes how that difficulty shows up. When a malefic is in sect, it can become more constructive. It still brings harshness, limitations, and conflicts, but it can direct the energy in ways that ultimately serve the native, like building long-term success through discipline and achievement, or achieving victory with courage. When a malefic is out of sect, it turns rogue. It's destructive. It's disruptive. Its disruptive side is much more likely to work directly against the person's own interest. The malefic alignment matrix here. Here's a very practical way to see this quickly in any chart. In a day chart or a diurnal sect, Saturn is the malefic of sect. He's on the team, but he can act more like a strict but useful enforcer or bodyguard. Mars would be the out-of-sect malefic, or the malefic contrary to sect. He tends to bring more recklessness, anger, accidents, or actions that end up hurting the native's own position. Now, if we were looking at a nighttime chart or a nocturnal sect, Mars is the malefic of the sect, or the sect malefic. He can fight on the behalf of the native and bring courage, leadership, or competitional strength. Saturn, in a night chart, would be the malefic contrary to sect, or out-of-sect malefic. He becomes a bigger source of denial, delays, frustrations, and blockages. This simple matrix is one of the quickest and most useful checks you can run when reading a chart. The benefics, amplification and sabotage. The benefics, Jupiter and Venus, follow the same basic rules, though the difference is usually not quite as dramatic. In a day chart, Jupiter is in sect and is considered the benefic of sect. Jupiter is in sect and can pour on the expansive good honor and opportunities more freely. Venus is out of sect, so her pleasures and gifts are more limited, short-lived, or come with hidden costs that don't support the long game. In a night chart, this is just flipped around, and then Venus is in sect, and her harmonious, fortunate side flows more easily, while Jupiter would be out of sect in a night chart and feels more constrained in what he can actually deliver. The amplification effect of angular houses. Everything we've talked about so far gets turned up when planets are sitting in angular houses, specifically the first house and the 10th house. When a planet is in sect and angular, it becomes highly constructive. It can bring real elevation, visible fortune, and success that people notice. When a planet is out of sect and angular, it drags the native into highly noticeable struggles, public setbacks, major obstacles, or misfortunes that are hard to hide. The angular placements does not create the sect condition, but it makes whatever condition the planet has much louder and much harder to ignore. It's such a key thing. Operating under hostile conditions. When an important planet, like the ruler of the ascendant, or the chart ruler, the ruler of the helm, falls out of sect, The native is basically operating under hostile conditions in that area of life. It doesn't mean automatic failure, but it does mean extra friction. Those matters don't come easy. You'll run into more setbacks and delays than the average person. You'll often have to work significantly harder to reach a similar level of success, and you'll need to keep your expectations realistic about what's actually possible. Out-of-sect planets simply have a harder time bringing forth their full signification without resistance. The cost of victory, the gritty reality check. Here's the raw, gritty truth that a lot of people don't like to hear. When a strongly placed malefic that is in-sect helps the native win big, that victory almost always comes at someone else's expense. Victory is a competition. Politics, battles, wars, or cutthroat business is great for the winner, but it can be disastrous for the losers. This is exactly why you so often see powerful placed malefics in the charts of very prominent, successful, or even ruthless public figures. They deliver big results, but those results frequently carry heavy consequences for everyone else involved. Mercury, morning star, or evening star. Mercury is the only planet that can fluctuate back from either team, depending upon the nativity. When Mercury rises before the sun in the morning, we would call that a morning star Mercury. He joins the diurnal team and leans more towards direct, analytical, and day-orientated expressions. When he sets in the evening after the sun, meaning the sun would have gone down and then Mercury is still in the air or still visible, he would be considered an evening star. Then Mercury would join the nocturnal team and he becomes more adaptive, intuitive, and more nocturnally orientated. This shift affects how his intellectual and communication and commercial qualities actually play out in that particular nativity. There is a preferred hemisphere, but these are considered minor sect conditions that are worth noting. Day planets generally feel more comfortable and perform better when they are on the same half or the same hemisphere of the chart as the sun, or above the horizon in a diurnal chart, meaning on the southern side of the chart, the ascendant-descendant line. This would be the Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. Nighttime planets prefer being on the same half of the chart as the moon, meaning below the horizon or on the northern hemisphere of the chart. Day planets also tend to do better in masculine or diurnal signs, while the night planets feel more at home in feminine or nocturnal signs. These are considered relatively minor points in early Hellenistic astrology, but the Arabic astrologers started paying more attention to them. And it would be considered, are they being, assertive or passive? And is that part of their nature? So now we're going to discuss some of the planetary significations and how sect might affect them. Now we get to some maybe more raw material here, the actual characters and the temperament of each of the planets, and how sect changes the way how they show up and perform in real life, so to speak. Every planet's nature is built from several layers. Its temperament, whether it is masculine and feminine, or assertive or receptive, its sect affiliation, whether it is a benefic or a malefic, and even its physical qualities like color and speed, brightness, and how it moves through the sky. So we're going to start with Saturn. Saturn is diurnal, is masculine, is cold and dry, the earth element, melancholy and temperament. Saturn is the slowest and furthest of the traditional planets, Because of that distance and slowness, he stands for isolation, limitation, old age, time, responsibility, structure, discipline, and inevitably endings, long-term strategy, memory, and the weight of consequences. As the greater malefic, his cold, dry nature is fundamentally contrary to life. He brings constriction, decline, and death. When Saturn is in-sect in a diurnal chart, his harsh edges gets tempered by the warmth of the day. He can act more like a strict but useful ally, bringing discipline, endurance, rigorous integrity, and sometimes wealth and status through hard work. It may be land or construction, real estate. When he is out of sect in a nocturnal chart, that cold, limiting, denying quality gets stronger. He becomes more frustrating, more destructive, and blocking, especially around father figures, inheritance, and or fourth house matters. Next is Jupiter. Jupiter is diurnal, masculine. Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. Jupiter brings growth, abundance, harmony, justice, law, religion, and magnanimous leadership. He is the one who moderates extremes and promotes balance and temperance. When Jupiter is in-sect or in a day chart, his beneficial qualities really open up. He can deliver honor, loyalty, generosity, high ideal pursuits, pursued honorably and with real wisdom. When he is out of sect in a night chart, that expansive, generous side feels more constrained. He still brings good things, but they don't flow as freely or as abundantly. Mars. Mars is nocturnal, masculine, excessively hot and dry. Of the fire element, he is caloric in temperament. Mars is the lesser malefic. Mars is the planet of raw action, courage, combative struggle, and competition. He rules war, aggression, daring, and destruction. When Mars is in-sect in a night chart, he can act like a warrior fighting on your behalf. He brings courage, resiliency, and a willingness to risk everything for victory. When he is out of sect or in a day chart, that same fiery energy goes rogue. He becomes more reckless, more brutal, more bullying, immodest, greedy, and disrespectful, often creating conflicts or accidents that end up hurting the native's own interests. The sun is diurnal, masculine, moderately hot and dry. Of the fire element, he is the king of the stars, the giver of light, heat, and life itself. The sun symbolizes creative power, authority, the father, nobility, truth, and enlightenment or enlightened sight. His fire is moderate. It reveals rather than burns everything down. In a day chart, when he is of the sect in favor, his leadership, good judgment, integrity, and ability to earn honors shines clearly. In a night chart, when he is out of sect, that same solar energy can twist into arrogance, entitlement, recklessness, maybe arrogance, maybe false pride, and in the extreme cases, maybe tyrannical behavior. Venus is nocturnal, feminine, moderately hot and moist, sanguine or phlegmatic in temperament. Venus is the lesser benefic and the goddess of love and beauty. Venus rules pleasure, relationships, fertility, art, harmony, passion, and all forms of enjoyment and play. When Venus is in-sect or in a night chart, her positive qualities flow more easily. Peace and joy, genuine affection, grace, artistic talents, balanced indulgences. But when she is out of sect in a day chart, those same gifts often get limited or sabotaged. The pleasures may show up, but they can turn into laziness, vanity, superficial, overindulgence, jealousy, infidelity, or just plain bad company that doesn't serve the long-term interest of the native. Mercury. Mercury is common in either sect, neutral by gender, and has a variable nature. He often becomes dry when he is not closely connected with other planets. He is the messenger of the gods. Mercury governs intellect, communication, commerce, travel, trade, writing, education, and cunning strategy. He takes on the qualities of whatever planet he is connected with. When Mercury is in the sect of favor and well aligned in the chart, he brings sharp wit, curiosity, and skillful debate, the love of learning, perceptive investigation, cultural refinement, or you could say basic good manners. When he is out of sect, he can become argumentative, deceitful, scattered, maybe a bit of a fibber, prone to lies, mockery, shallow trickery, or, maybe a con man. Next we have the moon. The moon is nocturnal, feminine, cold and moist. The moon is the queen of the heavens, the lesser luminary. The moon rules the body, organic life, the mother, the public. The moon changes and fluctuates like emotional rhythms. The moon governs the whole cycle of birth and growth, fullness and decay, and ultimately death itself. When the moon is in sect or in a night chart, she can bring adaptability, kindness, emotional intelligence, quick learning, liberty, and a love for novelty. But when she is out of sect in a day chart, her influence tends to be more inconsistent, passive, emotionally drifting, lazy, or lacking a direction, or maybe lacking ambition. So now that we've covered all the planets, I wanted to share this graph with you that if you're going to take a screenshot, this would be a good one. It has this little cosmic mechanics graph here where it goes through the planets and what their role is, if they're the greater or lesser malefic, the sect of then the gender, the element, temperament, core vices or virtues. It's kind of neat to see it all laid out like that. Then we have another one here. This would be the architectures of fate here. Has the planets listed, whether they're diurnal or nocturnal, elemental affiliations with the planet there. Kind of a neat summary of the information we've went over here today. And then next, I made this chart up to give you an example, just a visual example of now these would be the most ideal locations of planets where planets prefer to be. And when we say that in a perfect world, the planets just want to do what they want to do. And it depends upon their location and the sign that they're in, what time of day, the chart is, whether it's a diurnal chart or a nocturnal chart. So this illustration here has the Sun, Saturn, and Jupiter, the diurnal planets, above the top of the horizon. I'm just trying to show that they're above the horizon and also that Jupiter and Saturn are to the right of the sun, which means they rose before the sun. I didn't look it up, but there is a term for it. It's called occidental or oriental of the sun. I just look at if they're ahead of the sun or behind the sun, the normal primary motion of the heavens. They are to the right of the sun. the next chart here, we have the moon and Mars and Venus below the horizon. This would be the ideal location for these planets. I just wanted to show you that they're below the horizon on the northern side of the hemisphere of the chart. Now, I have never read anything about heavy planets on either side, occidental, oriental, of the moon, because the moon moves so quickly. So I've never read anything about that. So right here we have an example of a evening star Mercury, because the sun will set, go under the horizon, the western horizon, and Mercury will still be visible in the sky for a little while. Okay, and then lastly we have this next chart would be an example of a morning star Mercury, because Mercury rose before the sun this morning, this particular chart. Now this would be a Mercury that is considered a diurnal Mercury. So if the rest of the chart was on here, Mercury would be considered in-sect in a diurnal chart. If Mercury was on the other side of the sun, it would be considered a nocturnal sect Mercury, even if the sun is above the horizon, because in that case, Mercury would not be of the sect in favor. I hope that's clear and not too confusing. After you see a bunch of charts, it kind of works out. And lastly, here are some sources. These are fantastic books if you're ever interested. I can't say enough about these authors. Just amazing. Well, I hope you gained some information out of this video this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Glad if you've stayed this long. I appreciate your time. Once again, do all those YouTube-y things, hit the sub button and hit the like button if you've stayed this long. I'd really appreciate it. That'd be great. Anyway, till next time, Graybeard Astrology. I'm Jim. Bye-bye.